Okay, before we get into this, low-key, this video is inspired by, and therefore kind of dedicated to, Red Sword and Toonrific Tariq, because your videos, all of your channels, because I've binge-watched, like, fucking all of them, kind of made me more confident in talking about old shit that, like, I like. Yeah. And guys, this is what the channel's turning into. I know we have the running gag of, yeah, we don't usually do this, but we're doing this. But no, I think I've actually found stuff that I like doing, especially after that Lore Olympus video. So I think we may be shifting more towards content like this in the future. And this is an unexpected change, but it is a welcome one. So, without further ado, here we go. Sly Cooper, Master Thief, PS2 mascot, the game that is aimed at 10-year-olds but is based on the brutal massacre of a family. The game that forces its protagonist to do meth.
Oh my god, bro.
Tip me over and I'll slash up everything!
That shit do not rhyme, bro. At all.
I mean, consume spice that makes them overly violent and out of control. The children's game with the most sexual tension.
For once, let's cut the flirty chit-chat and get down to business. I need an experienced tail gunner. Jump in and grab the gun. We've got a bird to take down.
That's not flirty chit-chat?
And the only game series where they change the voice actress for the main love interest in every single game.
This pistol packs a paralyzing punch. You ought to try it.
You crooks are so predictable. You always return to the scene of the crime.
I need immediate pickup. Criminals are headed east. All units converge.
Nobody kidnaps Inspector Carmelita Fox and gets away with it.
Sly Cooper is, or rather was, a well-known cult favorite from the PS2 era, and to this day keeps a vocal fan base that continues to turn out content for this 20-year-old game. The original trilogy was made by Sucker Punch, and the remaster and fourth game was done by Sanzaru. Sucker Punch loved the project, and is one of the reasons why they got to the level of fame that it did. Unfortunately, they knew they couldn't keep up with the series forever, and thus made the last game end in a way that anyone could pick it up where it left off. Sucker Punch really liked the idea of someone picking up the series and continuing it where they couldn't, and that led up to the subject of this video, Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time. Made 8 years after the last of the Sly trilogy, Sly 4 was released to, well, shall we say, mixed reactions. While 95% of Google reviews liked it, and IGN gave it a rating of 8 out of 10, it seemed to be absolutely hated by a large part of the original fanbase. Look at any retrospective or review of the game on YouTube and compare it to the sentiments of the earlier series, and you can really tell that fans hated it. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not one of those people. I waited 8 damn years for this game, and it was good, and okay, I'm gonna get off my high horse, and we're just gonna get into this retrospective review thing. Before we begin, it should be known that I don't have a capture card, so none of the footage here is mine, and credits will be posted in the video and in the description, but I have played this game like 100 times, so I generally know what I'm talking about. This video is supported by Skillshare and ArtPal. We don't have a Patreon, so if you would like to hear how to support the channel, keep watching. But for now, let's talk about the plot, because it is a major point of contention. The Sly Cooper series covers Sly and the team's journey into becoming master thieves, and deals with themes of self-reliance, responsibility, friendship, and building self-confidence, as most children's media does. Sly Cooper is the last in a long line of master thieves, who store their collective knowledge in a book called The Thievius Raccoonus. On Sly's 8th birthday, he is given the book and the family heirloom cane, when an enemy gang called the Fiendish Five broke in and killed his father in front of him and stole and divided the book amongst them while leaving Sly on his own to be orphaned. Did I mention this is supposed to be a kid's game? Anyway, Sly goes to Happy Camper's orphanage and meets his lifelong friends and brothers Bentley and Murray. They form a new gang, yes, as children, with Bentley as the brains and the guy in the chair, and Murray as the muscle, the driver, and as the emotional backbone of the group. Yeah, nobody adds that last part, but it's true. Sly is the leader, Bentley is the lancer, and Murray is the tough, emotional guy. They go on to build a name for themselves in the criminal world and get to the point where they can go against the gang that killed Sly's father. The first game is them hunting down the Fiendish Five and putting the Thievius Raccoonus back together so that Sly can ascend from decent thief to master thief. Oh yeah, and the leader of the Five is a giant immortal robot owl who has killed every single member of the Cooper clan for time in memoriam. This owl, Clockwork, is taken down by the gang and Carmelita Fox, the cop to Sly's robber. She is the yin to his yang, and you can't convince me that she wasn't down to clown with Sly from day one. She is the obvious love interest, which is solidified by the last scene of the first game.
I thought for sure she was gonna slap the handcuffs on me right then and there. But instead, she was true to her word and gave me that 10-second head start. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I felt bad leaving her stranded on that giant rock, but I knew it wouldn't be long before we'd see each other again.
If you think that our boy Sly can have anything nice, you're wrong, because the second game picks up with him and the gang hauling ass to the Cairo Museum because, surprise, Clockwork can magically repair himself if he has all the parts in the same area. And the criminal underbelly of this world is stupid, so of course they're putting his parts back together to do assorted criminal shit. In this game, we meet Carmelita's partner, Neela, who helps the gang attempt to get the pieces back. A lot of things happened in this game, but the long and the short of it is Neela double-crosses Interpol and is part of the Claw Gang, who is trying to put together Clockwork's body so that its leader, Arpeggio, can be a big bird, not a little bird. And if that sounds dumb, that's okay, because he's literally not the endgame villain for this game. Neela, who double-crossed Interpol, triple-crossed the Claw Gang and punted the dweeb out of the plot as quickly as he had entered. She wants to be powerful and immortal for stupid reasons that I don't remember and frankly do not fucking matter. What matters is that she is Clockwork. Sorry. Clocklaw. But up the crazy and up the effectiveness. Shit happens and it gets way darker than it should for a kid's game, and they kick her ass. But if you thought this kid's game would end happily, you're wrong. Kind of. Bentley and Murray pull out a chip from Clockwork's mouth called the Hate Chip, which is the source of his immortality, and in the process, his beak clamps down and permanently fucking paralyzes Bentley. They nerf him permanently. The only thing I've witnessed as brutal as this in gaming is when they reworked Mercy 3 times in a year because Blizzard hates fun. Anyway, Carmelita shows up and she gets mad that she missed the fun and curb stomps the Hate Chip, permanently ending him and ending the thousands of years of violence and murder. She gives Sly the option to come with her and she lets the others go when he takes it. They have essentially a first date in the helicopter ride to Interpol, which lasts hours before they notice that the gang somehow rigged the helicopter to go in circles. For hours. Don't ask how, it really doesn't make sense and it doesn't need to. When they notice, Sly breaks free and jumps out and glides away, and Carmelita is happy about it. Honestly, does she just hate doing her job or something? Surely there are more important causes out there than Sly Cooper. The third game opens up with Sly and Bentley in Italy. Murray is gone. Sly met a member of the old Cooper gang who told him about Cane Island, where the Coopers stashed all of their collective treasure, and now Bentley and Sly were putting together a team to break into the island. They amassed a crew including past enemies from Dimitri the Disco Lizard and the Best Boy, Penelope the genius RC expert who has a crush on Sly but ends up in a relationship with Bentley, Murray, and a racist caricature of an Aborigines native named Goose.
He's come asking to be released from his training. Sure, I'll just bust you out of here and we'll go talk to him. You seriously won't leave without your gear? Yeah, I can see that the miners have really done a number on your land here. As for your walking staff and moonstone, me and my gang have a real talent for stealing back things that were wrongfully taken.
That can mind control people, and helped heal Murray spiritually. Yeah, I'm sure this wasn't good even for when this game was published. And the Panda King, one of the men who killed Sly's dad and handles explosives. They end up finding out that the brains of Sly's dad's gang has been going crazy out of jealousy on the island, trying to break in. Turns out Dr. M told McSweeney to contact Sly to lure him in to steal the king after 20-something years of trying and failing to breach the vault. A lot of shit happens, Carmelita shows up, Dr. M tries to convince Bentley to turn on Sly, and in the end Dr. M and Sly fight, causing a cave-in in the vault. Sly ends up taking a bullet for Carmelita, and she kicks Dr. M's ass before Sly wakes up and fakes amnesia to run off and live with Carmelita. It ends with Sly and her being happy, him leaving behind the contents of the island vault for the others, Murray turning to racing and demolition derbies, and Bentley and Penelope living together and making a time machine, and him watching over Sly's legacy. All of this brings us up to Sly 4. Sly 4 opens up to Sly narrating and talking about how, after years of happiness, the old itch came back and he had to pull a job. He and Carmelita are watching a museum that has some shady dealings going on, and he decides that it would be a good idea to rob it underneath her nose, because I guess he really did get some brain damage from the events on Cane Island. I mean, seriously, it is such a stupid idea to hit the same musician that you and your cop girlfriend are supposed to be watching for criminal activity. This right here, Sly, this is why Bentley is the brains of the operation. Sly definitely would not have made it far without him. Bentley contacted Sly because Penelope went missing and the pages of the Thieves Raccoonus are unwriting themselves in front of him. Luckily, and it's definitely not related at all, but Bentley and Penelope successfully made a time machine, and Bentley says that they need to go back in time to figure out what is happening. To do this, they need to strap it to Murray's van and need an artifact from the area that they want to travel to make it work. For that, they need Sly to steal something so that they can go back to feudal Japan. Luckily, or unluckily for Sly, the artifact that they need is in the museum that he's casing. That Carmelita is also casing. Anyway, they fuck off to feudal Japan, and let's talk for a moment. What was the plan here? Let's just take a moment to address this. They did not plan for their turn. In a perfect world, he would go back in time, somehow not change things completely or leave actual evidence of them being there, and they would return back to their time. But like, when? Immediately after they left chronologically? Slightly before, so Sly could get dressed and go home without being noticed? Why did it cross no one's mind that Sly would have to eventually go back to a girlfriend who didn't know he vanished? I mean, they were living together, working together, basically doing everything together. If Sly had mentioned they were married, like, I wouldn't be surprised, and he just disappears. If my partner disappeared when we were both supposed to be looking into a criminal ring hiding within an upstanding, rich art collector's museum, I would immediately think he was dead or kidnapped, especially considering that he is Sly Cooper and an Interpol agent. It would be noticeable, and he was just like, fuck it. I love Carmelita, but I'm gonna just go ghost for a few minutes, 2 months, 2 years, because I don't know when or if I can fix the Thieves Raccoonus. Never mind that we have risked our lives for each other, and like we have a very deep and reliant relationship due to the past, and the lie that I have been living off of. Which there is no real reason as to why she wouldn't know that I am lying about. It just seems overly selfish, mean even, and like borderline emotional abuse. And it's just not a look. Anyway, she obviously catches them and they run off and go back time to Japan and find Sly's ancestor Ryuichi Cooper, who is in jail for allegedly giving bad sushi to the Shogun. There's rats everywhere, and we are introduced to the boss of the level, El Jefe. Yeah, it's not a very imaginative name, but it works, I guess. Anyway, he's from the future, and he's a mercenary general who overthrew countries, and it becomes clear that they aren't the only ones with time-traveling capabilities. Sly breaks out Ryuichi Cooper, who is probably just a little too chill about a random stranger showing up and claiming that they are his ancestor from the future. They return to the safe house, and Ryuichi tells them that El Jefe is the source of literally all of his problems. They end up helping Ryuichi reopen his sushi shop, and get information from El Jefe with the help of Murray and his cross-dressing and dancing skills. Honestly, given how they toned down his gayness in the original trilogy, I really like that he got a drag queen section. It's good for him. Also, it's technically accurate, as geishas were sometimes men known as Okay, don't judge me for this. Taikomochi. Taikomochi. I am very English. El Jefe suffers from the same problem of every other enemy in this entire series, and he talks about his plan loudly to himself. I mean, what can you expect? It's a kid's game. He talks about needing to find Ryuichi to deliver some sort of package to the boss. It turns out the package is his cane, and this will be a common theme in the game. El Jefe actually gets it from them. While Sly thoroughly kicks his ass, the cane is sent off to this mysterious boss, and the team faces their first failure of the game, leaving them sort of demoralized. They contact Dimitri, who is taking care of the Thieves Reckoners in the future, and he tells them that the next place that they have to go to is America in the 1880s. They use a badge dropped by some of the goons in the El Jefe fight to take them where they need to go. The next ancestor is Tennessee Kid Cooper, who, much like Ryuichi, is in prison. I guess the game wouldn't work if the big bad evil guy did things the same way as Clockwork. It'd be a much shorter game if he had the ability to time travel and... Wait. If he doesn't time travel, how the hell is he a cyborg robot? Anyway, the only way for Sly to help Tennessee is to get arrested himself. This time his ancestor isn't quite as accepting, and he immediately questions Sly and his abilities, and his tendency to talk to Bentley through his earpiece. He will be the only one to point that out, that Sly is talking to voices in his head, and it's great. It's great, but it definitely should have happened way more often. The boss for this level is Toothpick, an Eastern European gangster who has a thing for spaghetti westerns and went balls to the wall crazy when he got his chance to go to the Wild West. He is one of the most annoying bosses in this game. Sly and Tennessee break out of jail utilizing TNT and teamwork. And when the two return to the safe house, Tennessee tells the gang that he was planning the heist that was supposed to have made him famous in Cooper history. But when he showed up, Toothpick ambushed him and threw him in jail. The bank was still robbed by someone though, and everyone knows it was Toothpick who did it. Toothpick took Tennessee's guns, one of which had the end of the Cooper cane on the hilts. Is it a hilt? A handle? I'm Canadian, I know exactly nothing about guns. The gang retrieves his gun considerably quickly, and we learn where Overwatch took their Cassidy gameplay from. Okay, I know that's not the case, but these are my special interests, and I am going to combine them as much as I want, considering it's likely that I'm getting both a Sly 5 and an Overwatch 2 in the near future. It's my channel. I do what I want. You don't subscribe for good content. This is mediocrity at its best. They bug Toothpick's office in the saloon with the help of Bentley and old-timey alcoholism. Sarsaparilla. They overhear Toothpick talking about ending the Cooper gang and their plan to bring the stolen gold to the future. We also see that he has Carmelita, because you didn't think there could be a Sly game without her, did you? Surprising to nobody, Toothpick is a bit of a misogynist and put a pin in that because it will not be the first time that they do Carmelita and the women of this game dirty. Carmelita essentially becomes meme and informs Sly that she is going to kick his ass, and then proceeds to both sass and flirt with Tennessee. This will not be the only time this is a problem. It turns out that she walked in on someone named Ciro the Paradox on a mountain of stolen antiques in the museum that she and Sly were independently casing. It turns out that he is the big bad evil guy, and he sends her back in time to get rid of her, meaning that for the first time in the series, she will be a major main playable character in the plot, rather than doing her own thing and being one step behind Sly like she usually is. They go through a bunch of mini jobs that normally I wouldn't bring up just to fill out the level, but I mention this because this is where we are going to see some of the reasons that the fans majorly dislike this game. How they treat women, and in particular Carmelita. While the others are wrestling and racing for keys, Carmelita joins a shooting contest where the resident champion makes a comment about how no man could. You know what? Let's just play the clip.
Hold everything, we got ourselves a latecomer. Let's see what this pretty little lady has got.
Well, what have we here? Little lady, I know you can't be here to shoot, because there ain't even no man around these parts can stand up to me.
I see what you mean. I can barely stand you myself.
But if you're scared of losing, I understand.
Well, I just won the competition, so you're too late. But I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. You just go right ahead, sweet thing. If you can beat my score, you get this here trophy. But if you lose, you gotta give me a kiss. What do you say?
Aye. This guy's breath smells like fermented gym socks.
Carmelita, we don't have a choice.
All right. I'll take your wager. But you better get ready to hand over that trophy.
And you better get ready for some serious lip wrestling.
Now keep that in mind because we are going to come back to it when we talk about characterization and art. They plan to rob a train using everyone's skills in order to get back the gold that should have been stolen by Tennessee and to kick Toothpick's ass. While they do that, once again, the Cooper cane, or rather gun this time, is stolen by the Paradox's henchmen. For reasons I don't exactly understand, the train ends up going off a cliff. The van's brake fails, and everyone nearly falls to their death. Luckily, Bentley has his shit together as usual and grabs Murray's necklace that has some bones on it, and they end up time traveling to prehistoric times. The van is completely busted, and for some reason, that affects their ability to communicate with Dimitri. I don't know why, it just does. Sly takes this time to try to apologize and snuggle up to Carmelita, not using his brain enough to think that maybe this isn't the best time. Like, really, she just found out you were lying to her, stealing, and went back in time, all in like the span of 2 days for her. They have to retrieve parts of the time machine that fell off as they fell to Earth, and as usual, they aren't the first time travelers in the area. The boss for this level is the Grizz, who is a rapper and an artist who was supposed to be voiced and based off of the rapper Biz Markie, who actually did some of the demo voice lines for the game project before leaving. They end up coming across the first Cooper, because of course they do. He is a powerhouse named Bob, who was once renowned for his strength and his ability to steal dinosaur eggs to provide for the clan. But after having his cane stolen, he got depressed and out of shape, and I would like to point out that while he speaks in gibberish, they actually do translate in the subtitles, which I don't remember happening at all. This just might be a me thing, but I very distinctly remember them not having subtitles at all. So watching them translate what he said on screen was a little bit jarring to me, and I'm pretty sure I found the scene in our dimensions or something. We find out that the Grizz was a quote-unquote street thug, which may or may not be the reason why Biz left the project. I mean, this is me guessing. I haven't spoken to anyone on the dev team, but it's just the characterization. He was swept out of the gutter, and his primitive art was put on display by a pop artist who saved him. Yeah, this is just Dimitri, but make it black-coded and very problematic. People apparently lost interest when they found out that his graffiti art was just bad, and he returned to crime and started working for the Paradox, stealing the eggs that Bob usually did, as well as going after the Cooper King for his new boss. Murray is tasked with getting Bob on track in a very rocky training montage section, which, if I remember right, was fun but also kind of frustrating. I really appreciate that they don't dumb down Murray and remove his character growth, and honestly, it is refreshing to see him in a mentor position. He's come a long way from the cowardly Sly went Murray, and we love to see it. The problem with that is, as soon as it's over, Murray faces a self-worth crisis as Bob takes over his strongman position on the team, because Murray can't have nice things. Bentley follows Grizz and finds out that he is painting and planting the pieces in the past because they could pass as cave paintings, only to go forward in time, dig them up, and sell them for a fortune. Carmelita is also tailing Grizz and has an awkward exchange with Sly where she uses the information and codes she got off of the Grizz to smooth it over a bit. She's still a bit bitter, but she admits that she knew something was wrong with Sly before all this, and she had to accept that. The team comes together to take down Grizz, and aside from one Sly and Carmelita scene that fuels the shippers, nothing important happens. Murray confronts Grizz and single-handedly takes him down in a ice skating battle? You know, when Spyro did this, it wasn't nearly as cringy. Rather than a traditional boss battle, this is a rhythm game, and while the group loves it, I feel like I speak for everyone when I say I wish they did literally anything else. They finish the level out with the closest thing to victory that they've had so far. The next episode goes to medieval England, to the best ancestor, who I definitely didn't have a weird Tumblr role-playing account for, Sir Galith Cooper. Galith is the founder of the Cooper Order of Knights, but in this episode is being used as a court jester in a circus, because those definitely existed back then. They bring up Penelope for the first time since the start, so we know we're going to be dealing with her and Bentley this episode, because this game sets up plot and follow-throughs about as well as Amy Schumer sets up her shitty jokes. If you have any doubts as to what will happen in this chapter, it's worth noting that all the henchmen in this level are sentient robots. Who do we know that is smart enough to make hundreds of sentient robots? Sly reaches Galith, who insists that he doesn't need help and he's just planning for the perfect moment to escape, and we quickly find out that he is boisterous, cocky, and just fun to be around. He tried to take on an army of the robot guards single-handedly, which resulted in him being captured. The boss of this episode is the Black Knight, and do I really need to outline how this is going to go? Or are we going to use our 3 collective brain cells? Yeah, anyway, they see the Black Knight transporting Galith's cane to the blacksmiths. They steal it and proceed to take down a few Zeppelins that are tracking their movements and communications. Galith says that a monster guards the castle and the moat, and while Bentley doubts him, Galith doesn't give a single shit and rushes headfirst into its lair. Carmelita gets caught by Sly as she's following Galith to make sure he doesn't get himself killed, and we see an outright jealous.
Carmelita, what are you doing?
Relax, Ringtail. Just keeping tabs on the Dragon Slayer.
I don't recall you watching my back on any jobs.
Only when I'm trying to catch you. But I find Galith charming. He has a good heart, even if he is a headstrong goof.
Then you better get going before Sir Goof gets himself captured again.
Honestly, I can't blame him. I'm not the jealous type, but if my girlfriend was flirting with my great whatever grandpa, I'd probably be pretty salty too. The beast turns out to be a giant robot, and Galith gets his ass handed to him, and we play as Carmelita to take it down. Galith's pride is hurt, and he comments about how he doesn't like being rescued by a fair damsel. And once again, we see how this game shows its more problematic undertones regarding Carmelita. The team does a series of jobs to mess with the Black Knight, and nothing important happens until Bentley tails the knight himself, and he immediately finds out that, oh my fucking god, guys, it's like totally Penelope. Like, who could have ever guessed? Yeah, she stole his plans for the time machine that they worked on together, and teams up with the Paradox. She shit-talks Bentley and Sly and talks about how they could have made billions making weapons if only Sly hadn't pushed his morals on him. Of course, when Bentley returns, he has a total mental breakdown. Here's where we see the other major problem fans have with this game. Penelope would never act this way or say any of the things that she said here. She did have a penchant for mischief in the past and did hide her identity to run a probably less than legal dogfighting ring, but she risked her life for Bentley and never showed a single signs of having problems with the Cooper Gang's morals. Furthermore, she was high-key simping for Sly. Like, she wanted to ride that hard, but now you're trying to tell me that she not only dislikes him, but hates him enough to try to kill him and take out his family's legacy with the paradox. I don't buy it. There's no reason that Sanzaru should have thought that she would have acted like this. I get they weren't involved in the original series, but they remastered the series for PS3, so they should absolutely know at least the basics of her character. I have more to say on this, but we'll have to wait until we break down the characters later on. The team brainstorms how to get into Penelope's castle, and Gallus suggests making bombs. They go off and get ready, and after a few side missions, Carmelita leads the team's briefing, in which Sly constantly interrupts her for some reason, and they just stick with blowing the bridge and making a frontal assault for the castle. Not exactly elegant, but that's what to be expected with Bentley out of the game. This leads to the boss fight of this level, where Penelope has a giant mech and Sly gets trapped. For a moment it looks like Penelope is going to kill Sly, but then Bentley intervenes with a mech made out of the body of the moat monster. Bentley beats her and frees Sly, and apologizes for having a mental breakdown in a situation where it'd be totally normal and acceptable to have a mental breakdown. He seemingly has completely gotten over Penelope in the few days that he was out. Apparently, Penelope was one of his quote-unquote greatest demons, and while not openly said, they showed her alongside Clockwork. Yeah, this is why people hate this game. The next timeline is Ancient Arabia. They were after Salim al-Kupar, who has disappeared after much of his team of 50 thieves has retired. In this timeline, La Paradox's face is plastered everywhere, and we can kind of tell that the game is coming to an end pretty soon. They find Salim chilling and eating and being an absolute icon. Apparently someone named Miss Decibel has entered town, and she started spending big money. She was obviously working for La Paradox and was baiting Salim in to capture him. She has a backstory, which is essentially an elephant Karen that can mind control people with a horn stuck in her trunk. Yeah. Drink every single time I say that this is supposed to be a kid's game. To earn the trust of Salim, the gang has to get his thieving outfit back that he pawned after losing money on the races. This outfit is one of the disguises Sly used in the game, and listen, I am not a furry. Ignore the avatar. I'm not a furry, but you know what? I'm gonna stop right there. My digital footprint is cringy enough as it is. Just look at this and draw your own conclusions as to what I'm going to say. The team hunts down the other members of Salim's team, and meanwhile they eavesdrop on Decibel and the Paradox himself. We find out that the Paradox is trying to make himself royalty through the manipulation of time-space. I mean, that's not a terrible idea. It's definitely a more understandable reason for his actions than those of Clockwork and Dr. M. And it's clear that he's using Miss Decibel through their relationship. And yeah, I have opinions, and we will talk about that later. They bug Miss Decibel's room and harass her with rock music, which clearly, as a classical fan, she hates. Wait till the Debs find out about symphonic metal. Through the bug, they find out that Decibel is forging documents so that La Paradox will be legally recognized as royalty with a paper trail behind it. Bentley tells the group that they need to make a distraction to continue with their plans, and that will be Carmelita performing a belly dance. He says he didn't ask, and despite Murray's constant interjections that he could do it, Bentley and Sly kind of volunteer Carmelita that she's just...
However, since we don't want to announce our presence, we need a diversion for the guards. So I've taken the liberty of fashioning an outfit for Carmelita, who will use it to lure the guards away from their posts by, performing a belly dance.
What?
Possibly your best plan ever, Bentley.
I'm sorry I didn't ask, Carmelita, but you're the only one who can pull this off.
Bentley, I could do it.
I am not getting into that outfit.
I realize it's a bit revealing, but think of it as going undercover.
Bentley?
I'm positive the Murray could squeeze into that thing.
Hey, Carmelita, you should model that outfit for us, to make sure it fits.
Shut up, Ringtail. I'm only doing this for the team.
Listen, silk is very elastic.
All right, let's move out. We don't have any time to waste.
Despite her constant protests the entire time. This is where all of the previous examples of the problematic content in this game really amounts to a gross feeling. It just gives me, and so many others, the ick. With the guards distracted, they sneak into a docking station for a giant blimp. They end up tripping some alarms and come face to face with the Paradox himself. Decibel comes in behind them with Salim in tow, and the Paradox doesn't care, and is honestly pretty nasty to Decibel. He just takes off without her because he already has Salim's cane, and he's an asshole who is just using her. Something he could have done without, romantically manipulating her, but, we'll get to that later. Sly fights Decibel, and Carmelita is captured by the Paradox as he proceeds to call Decibel a big-nosed fat failure. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be played for laughs or to just show that he's a dick. I actually kind of feel bad for her. Yeah, no, not really, but it was kind of a dick move. They head back to their own time and find the Paradox has his face plastered everywhere. Bentley does some digging, and it turns out that the Paradox's family were also master thieves, and his dad was trying to steal the same giant diamond that Sly's dad was, but got there just a little too late. This, of course, did not stop Connor Cooper from framing the heist on him and having him arrested. With nobody to show him the family business, Cyril the Paradox got arrested pretty quick after turning to crime. He made some contacts in jail, and when he was released, he played up being a law-abiding citizen and art collector while being involved in selling stolen antiquities. Sly goes to rescue Carmelita, and much like the other two times that this has happened in the series, it's a setup to capture Sly. At least this time they openly acknowledge it, but Sly still goes for it anyway because Sly is a soft boy no matter what the devs say. The Paradox takes off with Sly and Carmelita, and Bentley assembles the ancestors to get their canes back. Honestly, I know that Bentley caused literally all the problems in this game, but on the other hand, without him, none of it would ever be solved, and he's just a real leader in his own right in this game, and I love it. The ancestors go back to their own times as they correct the time anomalies of having their legacy stolen. That sounds more complicated than it is. They got their sticks back, and the universe yeeted them back home. It cuts back to the Paradox, who is talking about how he's going to eject Sly and Carmelita, bouncing them through time to remove them from time completely. Sly asks why the Paradox went after his ancestors, not just him. I imagine the whole "I want your entire family dead" thing is getting a bit old for him at this point. The Paradox wants revenge, not just fame. Bentley and the others arrive, and the Paradox tries to attack them, causing damage to his blimp. Bentley says that he just tore a hole in time-space, and Sly says that he has to stay and end things for his family. It's kind of stupid. Sly won at this point. Just let him go and find some way to kill him or get him arrested later. Anyway, he monologues at Le Paradox on the blimp. They fight, and Cyril shows him once again that he is an asshole, and steals his glider when Sly tries to save his life. Luckily, he is an asshole and he gets exactly what he deserves and gets hit by a plane and falls to the ocean. Sly, who is stuck on the blimp, ends up going through the hole in time-space, and nobody knows where he ends up. They waited to see if he would show up, and when he doesn't, they all just go on living their lives. Carmelita and Bentley don't stop looking for him, and in the post-credits we find out that he is stuck in ancient Egypt, and the game ends. And that's Sly 4. Wow. 11 pages of notes and a half an hour of recording, and we have just finished the synopsis. This is going to be a pain to edit. So if you like the content and want to see more like it, hit subscribe, comment, and turn on the notifications. And listen to a bit from our first sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community where you can learn everything under the sun, from graphic design to the occult. Learn from professionals that provide engaging courses with projects to help you grow your craft and expand your knowledge. From video editing and more, Skillshare has hundreds of courses for whatever you need. With professional teachers and engaging projects, Skillshare is the best way to pick up a new skill or hobby at an affordable price. For $17.99 Canadian dollars a month, you can get a world of knowledge at your fingertips. Don't like commitment? Follow the link in the description or scan the on-screen QR code to get 1 free month of Skillshare on behalf of iHeart Gameplay. And keep an eye out for my upcoming course, Publishing on a $0 budget. Okay, so controversial opinion, the story isn't terrible. No wait, come back. It's not terrible, but it's not great. It sits comfortably in the meh area, in my opinion. The idea of them going back in time to meet the ancestors is a good jumping off point from the end of Sly 3, and were it handled by, well, a different writing team, it may have even been a great story. I'm going to quickly go over the things that I like about the story before we get into the much longer list of things that I don't like. I generally don't like being negative in things like this, and I often like things that most people don't, and honestly, I don't really care what people think about it usually. I mean, look at my Lore Olympus video, that much should be clear. I like time travel stories. I like the convoluted BS that it causes, I like the fan service that it allows for, and I usually don't care if I can't follow the content. I'm looking at you, Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles and the Clamp universe. I especially like the idea of Sly going back in time to be able to meet the ancestors that have been so talked up in the trilogy. Honestly, I do think some of them lived up to the glory. Tennessee, Gallus, and Salim were amazing additions to the cast. Ryuichi and Bob were... they were characters. Not really much else, but they definitely weren't terrible. I like how the stakes were actually there. Where Clockwork just wanted to kill the Coopers, the Paradox was a little more insidious. It wasn't enough to just go after Sly. He didn't want to kill his family. What he wanted was worse. He wanted to see them suffer in mediocrity, with their greatest achievements stolen out from under them while they watch behind the bars of a jail cell, just like his own father did. It's unhinged and it's definitely a sins of the father thing, but it makes sense. Death isn't always the worst thing that can happen. And what is worse for a clan of infamous master thieves but to be made amateurs and laughingstocks of? I love that they kept the character development of Bentley and Murray. It would have been very easy to make Murray the goofy fuck-up of the team again, to make Bob feel his position as the strongman, but they didn't. They made him a mentor and a leader in his own right. In situations where he is separated from the team, he is independent and functions on his own calmly and effectively. The same goes for Bentley, who has kept his tendency to be the implicit leader of the team where Sly is the explicit. They keep up this new, less anxious attitude, and he is just as effective as Sly in regards to pickpocketing, sneaking, and handling enemies. The characters feel older and it reflects their time apart. It is not said how long it's been, but I'd put it between 3 and 5 years. You feel that everyone, including Carmelita, is comfortable with each other and missed each other in some forms. The ancestors have their own personalities, and none can be confused for any other, but at the same time you can clearly see the Sly mannerism in all of them. I like the reminiscing that they do throughout the game, but especially in the beginning. You can feel their excitement in their reuniting, and it reminds me of how my siblings, especially me and my brother, are when we get together after my moving a few cities away. They reference their past capers, Sly's horrible Italian accent comes back, and dialogue between the main trio is refreshing. I also like that Le Paradox didn't kill Carmelita when he found her. He knew that that would leave evidence that even he couldn't get rid of, but throwing her back in time was effective. You can't go to jail if they never find a body. It's a minor thing, but I'm glad that we see Dimitri. I'm not sure as to why he has no storylines. Bentley narrates what he says, but I'm glad to see that he is still friends with the gang. It's heartwarming to see him and the team go friends.
Over the tail feathers and we can...
What is this with clocks, bro? Have you no vision? Are you hearing what I beam to you? You think you have juice? Don't show me a little mind when talking about such big things. You think you can swing the bat? Show your bling and let me shine you.
I have no idea what you're saying. And your suit sucks.
Oh! Let's dance! Oh, my baby!
Mary, that name's a stain on my pants, bro. What? Cooper, you've got some fuzzy dice to come round here. And you still a crackerbox. Looking for main man Murray, eh? Sorry, but I'd rather see you get busted big time. God!
To this.
Before the heist, we'd recruited our disco-loving, scuba-diving friend, Dimitri Listeau, to look after the Thievius raccoonus. Because it was irreplaceable and the only guide we had, it was far too risky to take the book
into weeks. We had to face the fact that he was truly lost. We've stopped talking about it all the time, but I know it's all we're thinking about, even if we show it in different ways.
Maybe they couldn't get the voice actor back for him, or maybe his inclusion is just fan service, but it's nice to have him back. And that's going to be that for the positives. Time to rant about the story. I know I already said it, but why the fuck would Sly think that it was a good idea to rob that particular museum? There's no way he didn't know Carmelita was working the place for Interpol. He was literally her partner in Interpol based off the end of Sly 3. And the numerous jokes he makes about calling in helicopter rides and buying donuts and general cop shit. I know he is a master thief, but really, how in the fresh fuck would he think he'd be able to hide it from the woman that he is living with, working with, and who's literally investigating the same damn museum that he's trying to scoop out to rob? It just doesn't make sense to me. When confronted by Carmelita about it, he uses the excuse that he needs to save his family. But even that isn't completely honest, because he was still planning to rob the place before Bentley got in contact with him. What's the point about lying after being caught out? That's not going to make the situation better. Honestly, I know he wasn't used to normal civilian life, but how he thought robbing a museum was a better idea than communications and couples therapy is beyond me. Sly was at a point in the trilogy where he was mature enough that he would never do this. Sly 3 exited out with him dying and lamenting that he wasn't being truthful to himself or Carmelita. His whole internal monologue, as he was dying, was about how immature he was. It was a come-to-Jesus moment, and you can't convince me that that man who lay dying because of his family legacy would just get bored of normal, safe life. You can't convince me that the man who said that Bentley and Penelope showed him what really matters in life, who wanted to make it work with Carmelita, would just turn around and then lie to her. Obviously about more than just the amnesia thing. And not even consider about how she would feel if/when she found out. I don't like that he didn't plan for failure. He didn't plan for a situation where he didn't come back. He didn't send a letter that would come back in a week or a month after he left. He didn't think about what would happen to him or Carmelita if things went wrong. He just disappeared, leaving behind the woman who saved his life on numerous accounts and the legacy of his family and his brothers time and time again. There's not one person who has done more for the Cooper clan than Carmelita Montoya Fox. This badass bitch, I mean, he literally walked his skinny ass out to get milk and just never came back. I'm sorry, Sly, baby, she is so far out of your league. On top of that being fucked up, you're just not gonna get anyone else like her. Speaking of relationships, Bentley and Penelope were the perfect couple. They were literally made for each other. She adored him, and when she wasn't with him, she was simping for Sly. She was doing this while they were trying to break into Cane Island. You can't tell me that she randomly decided after spending, a year with them, and then a few more with Bentley, that she would just randomly pull a 180 and say, you know what, fuck Sly Cooper, fuck morals, fuck the team that was like family to me, money is my only god, and sorry Bentley, I'm a dip. That's just not how her character is, but that's a problem. That is the problem. This game does not like women. Now granted, there weren't a bunch of women in the trilogy, but those that were their own people with realistic motivations and distinct personalities. They were never tokens. They were never phased or phrased as incompetent or easily manipulated, and they were never objectified. I will go into depth on my problems with the character designs in a bit, but for now, all I will say is they majorly objectified Carmelita, and it is a major problem. The only quote-unquote good woman in this game is forced into sexual positions and deals with misogyny everywhere. In this kid's game. Okay, moving on. I'm not gonna get heated. Don't go off script. Don't get that mad. Yes, If you read some of the newspaper clippings from the trilogies, you can see headlines where they call her hot, but never once in the game was she forced into any sexual position, especially one where she had no choice but to take part of, that she obviously didn't want to be there. In the beginning, the wolf made a comment about no man being able to beat him, called her sweetheart, and said that if she won, which she implied was impossible, she would have to make out with him. Tennessee comments on her looks. Gallup gets upset when a woman saves him, and in the end, Bentley and Sly pressure her into a sexual outfit to perform a culturally insensitive sexual dance to distract the guards. She does not want to do this. She protests numerous times, but Sly and Bentley make her and imply that it is the only way to succeed with the mission, all while Murray is volunteering to take her place. Murray, the history of drag performing, and literally did it in the beginning of the game. But no, it has to be Carmelita, so that they can get her into a skimpy outfit, so that she can be kidnapped in that skimpy outfit. They pulled a Princess Leia here, guys. Now listen, I have no problem with sexual themes. I had a major thing for Carmelita as a kid, so in any other situation, I'd be down for this. But the fact that she was forced into it makes it low-key predatory and creepy. It's made even weirder when Sly tells Salim to enjoy his retirement and to enjoy the show, pushing him to go oogle his girlfriend, who is in a situation that she does not want to be in. This is a major problem, and I really don't need to explain why. For the other two women, they weren't treated much better. Penelope was a woman who personally sword-fought Captain Lafouille because he stood for something that she didn't. If she was a money-hungry woman only motivated by capital, she wouldn't have fought with him. She would have joined him. Piracy brings in a lot of money. The promise of someone's family gold was not a guarantee, and even if it was, nobody ever said she would see a cent of it. She fought because she was part of the Cooper gang, and because she had feelings for Bentley. Thieves in Time removed her, dumbed her down, and made her a person who would turn over everything she worked for and loved for money. She wasn't even the final boss. They made her a problem for one episode and handled her in the same episode. They made her out to be a bitch who shit-talked Bentley, the man she loved and spent the last few years with, and risked her life for. They didn't even make her a secret. From the moment the episode started, we knew somehow it would be involving Penelope. The Black Knight, the Black Baron, the sentient robots everywhere, the fact that they didn't even change her voice like they did with the Baron outfit. Sanzaru put very little effort into this reveal when considering how integral she was in Sly 3. It's almost a personal insult to the fans. Miss Decibel is a villain, and we don't need to like her, and I'm not saying that we should, but it is telling that she is characterized as a bit of a Karen who has her weight made fun of, who is shown to be incompetent at the one thing she likes, and that she is so gullible and naive that Le Paradox can romantically and probably sexually, but yet again this is a kid's game, manipulate her into doing his bidding. She likely didn't need that to join up with him. She could have taken the money, bribe, or a title, or literally any other thing, but they went with these characteristics of her being just a woman that's down bad simping for Le Paradox. I said that I didn't know if Le Paradox's taunting of her was supposed to be played for laughs earlier, or if it was supposed to show that he's an asshole, and that is a problem. I shouldn't have to guess where him making fun of her weight is supposed to be. Is this supposed to be a joke? Or is it supposed to be, like, I shouldn't have to guess. And yes, I am likely on the spectrum, alright? I get that I don't understand a lot of social cues, but it is very rare where, like, something like that is up for question. You know, it's usually a pretty black and white thing. But no, this is a incompetent Karen who's simping for a literal skunk who is just so fat that she's most likely made a joke of, if not just used, you know, to show that it's a problem. It's a problem, okay? We don't have to like her, but we have to admit that that's a problem. This game makes the only quote-unquote good woman a sex object who is forced into shitty situations, retcons Penelope's entire personality and puts her in a Kill Bill jumpsuit, and then turns her on everything that she loves for money, and makes the only female villain a dumb, easily manipulated joke. This is a major problem in my and many others' eyes and shows a blatant, I wouldn't say disregard, but absolute distaste for female characters and audiences. There is also something that should be said about putting this amount of sexual content in a kid's game. Remember, these games are supposed to be aimed at 10-year-old boys. Are these the kind of things that we want to be impressing on young boys? That women are either shallow, evil people motivated only by money, and that you can beg and pout to get your girlfriends into situations they don't want to be in, and that you can totally make fun of someone's size and manipulate them in relationships because of said size. I know this sounds probably really uber feminist, and I really don't mean it to be, but it's a major narrative and tonal problem in this game. It's not something that can be overlooked. It is blatant. And for those of you who think that these games have always been like this, there is a difference between this and this. There is some variance between ancestors to their reactions, some meaning slide from disbelief to immediate acceptance, and I feel like they probably should have played up the doubt from the ancestors a little bit more. This is a stranger who is talking to himself, dressed strangely, who is breaking into your jail cell claiming that they're your ancestor from the future. There are more than a few ancestors who should have labeled him as a witch and freaked out and probably burned him at the stake. And talking about ancestors, let's address the elephant in the room. Where the hell is Connor Cooper? Aside from one flashback scene, which, by the way, is the only scene in the entire game series where we see any sort of depiction of his face, not important, just thought I'd point that out, we don't see him at all. The entire series has Sly's love and admiration for his father as a major focal point. His murder is the inciting incident for the entire series, and Sly literally dresses in his outfit and hat. Many people remark on his father throughout the series, not just Sly. So while we never see him, he is a major character in the series. When Sly enters the Cooper vault and doesn't know a move that his father perfected because he died before he could write down his section of the Thievius Raccoonus, Sly literally asks his ghost for help, and he helps him. Considering all this, it is ridiculous that they would not have a level with Connor Cooper in it. It's not like it would be impossible with the plot, and frankly, I think it is ignoring a major part of Sly's personality. Sly would absolutely wonder about seeing his father amidst all of this, and frankly, it's weird that Le Paradox didn't go after Connor in any sort of way. Connor Cooper and Le Paradox's fathers were enemies. His action caused everything Cyril went through. If he was going to do all of this, would it not make sense to go back in time and stop what Connor was about to do? Why would he just let his father go through the embarrassment? Why would he let himself go through the pain of not having a father? It just doesn't make sense. I can't find who wrote the game, but it almost makes me wonder if it was either their first job or if they didn't have enough writers to go over and edit the plot and check for lore and continuity. So, as a service to myself and the fandom at the end of this, I will talk about how I would have changed the story to make it work better. Yeah, get ready for some video fanfiction. For now, we are going to move on to the art portion of this review, and because we are talking about art, we also need to talk about our next sponsor, ArtPal. ArtPal is an art platform where people can upload their art and sell it in one easy platform. Choose from dozens of framing and print choices and thousands of art pieces. When you buy a piece, the artist gets paid via PayPal. ArtPal handles shipping, packaging, and payment so artists can sit back and relax as collectors get amazing artwork delivered straight to them. For sellers, it's as easy as uploading, setting your price, and go. For buyers, you can be guaranteed a hassle-free and secure buying experience. No need for custom websites, sellers' fees for online stores, and manufacturers. ArtPal is one of the most user-friendly, high-quality print-on-demand art print services out there. If you want to support this channel and get yourself some new art to impress your friends and family, follow the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen. So the art of Sly Cooper has always been a key part of this series. From the get-go, they wanted an American comic style. And while it was changed a bit for the cutscenes in Japan, it always stuck to that style pretty well. Granted, in the first one they were still getting their footing, but by the second one they had developed a very familiar and very unique angular American comic Sly Cooper style that carried through the rest of the series and into the comics. They had static cutscenes due to a small production team and budget, and the want for it to feel like you were playing an actual comic. While they had some moving parts in a few scenes, it was all static images. This included the animated short, Goodbye My Sweet. When I first heard of Sly 4, it was through the animated short, Timing is Everything. This is the first glimpse we got of the animation style that we would be getting in Sly 4. Moving on from the static and angular old comic style, we had a fully animated, voiced, and composed short, and from my personal experience, this is where the complaints started rolling in. It's clear that this is not the original style, and in fact, it's pretty far from it. The short presented a more Saturday morning cartoon feeling, which took some getting used to. As a result of the art shift, it made the characters look younger. It was excusable in the short because we didn't know where it falls in the canon, or if it was canon at all. It doesn't match the theme of the game, in my opinion. This is supposed to be some years after 3, so the younger appearances are a bit jarring if you are playing the series back to back. There are some things I like about the new style. Honestly, Murray's design always looked a bit weird to me in the trilogy, and in the 4th game they matured him and come to a design that looks both appealing and suiting to his more mature and calm nature. Bentley looks more or less the same, though he changed his shirt, and Sly got minor changes to his outfit. The cartoonish style is something that you'll have to get used to, especially when you see the highly stylized concept art. I'm glad they toned it down from that, but on the same hand, I do wish they would have stuck to the previous art style and outlined that when talking to the concept artists. I personally think that the style change was a major mistake and one of the reasons why some of the OG fans have such a hate motor for it. This may be anecdotal, and I am not sure about how much of this was in the larger fandom, but I distinctly remember friends coming to me to complain about how stupid the art looked and how they totally weren't buying the game, months before shilling out money to buy it on the release. Back in the day, I actually followed the concept artists on Tumblr, and she says that they were told to deliberately age them up for older audiences. And for some unknown, godforsaken reason, they decided that this was the way to go. If you had not told me that that was Carmelita Fox, I would have literally not known. This art style is so far from the original that it is jarring to think that this is supposed to be the same game. Listen, I'm not a concept artist, but I am a graphic designer and I do sell some art commissions on the side. If someone told me to make a Sly Cooper drawing and I gave them this, I would get immediate complaints. I don't mean to insult her talent. She is a very talented person, but nothing about this is Carmelita Fox, and is as far from the Sly Cooper art as you could possibly get. And before you guys get up my ass about, well, if you don't like it, do it yourself. Okay, I will. Here's a non-sexualized older Carmelita Fox that looks like the character she is supposed to and is not a sex object. Was that so hard? Notice how she's still hot and yet not made specifically to be a sex object. And I'm going to add in, people do think that this was hot, alright? I posted this on DeviantArt, and you should see the folders that it was added to. I can't show them on YouTube, but it is, yeah, people thought that she was still hot, and that's the nicest way to put it. Anyways, her design for Sly 4, like a hot dog that has been left out on the counter, only gets worse with age. Apologies to the artist, this isn't completely your fault, you had your orders. But come on, even my queer ass wouldn't do that to Carmelita. And the older I get, the worse it looks. I would also like to compare the Carmelita design to the Penelope design, and you can really see the difference in attitude between the two. While I am not a fan of the Kill Bill outfit, I do think it fits the attitude and tone of the game and its many pop culture references. Had they the same attitude going in on Carmelita as they did on the Penelope design, I doubt they would have gotten as much backlash. But alas, as Genevieve herself said, they wanted a more mature design for older audiences, aka make that girl a PH star. I mean, like, literally, look at the way that she poses in game and in art. They gave her the Widowmaker broken back look. It's terrible. It's not good. Despite my gripes with the animation and the concept art, they seem to have stuck pretty close to the original games when it comes to the in-game models. Honestly, I can't complain about them. They look great while keeping the old feel with the updated models. Honestly, the team did a great job with the models, and I wish they would have kept the same authenticity as they had in the playable game, as with the animated style and everything else. Peter McConnell is brought back as the composer and does a great job with the score, which is very important to the identity of Sly Cooper. The original voice acting cast returns, minus Carmelita, who has had a different voice actress in every single game. This time, Gray Delisle took up the role and did a pretty good job, honestly. I would have preferred Alicia Guildwell, oh, I am so sorry, I cannot say your name, sweetheart, from Sly 2 back, but it is nice to have a voice actress that has more experience, and this is gonna sound mean, doesn't sound amateurish. Unlike the audio mixing and vocal direction of the trilogy, Sly 4 is dead on. I personally think that this is the best sounding out of the entire series, which is great because the series sort of has a long-standing issue with bad vocal direction and audio just due to the small team, budget, time, and experience. Remember that the people that made the first Sly game had next to no experience in game design. The gameplay is smooth, and I personally have experienced no bugs myself. Myself's? Plural? Are there two? The gameplay is smooth, and I personally have experienced no bugs myself. Any problems I have dealt with in-game was mostly due to my bad reflexes and worse eyes. I'm not even lying, I have a lazy eye so fucked up that I may have to begin wearing an eye patch again. Yeah, I find that out on the 5th of this month. I can tell you, I'm really not looking forward to the pirate jokes. Though there are a few bugs that can be found in the game, most of them are pretty small, and you can find them listed in the Sly Cooper wiki. The performance of the game outpaces, in particular, Sly 1 and 2 Amazing, while still feeling like a Sly Cooper game. Some of the people who disliked playing characters outside the main trio in 3 would definitely hate 4, where in every single episode you control other characters. Sly is the namesake, but let's be honest, he stopped being the sole main character by the end of number 2. The Cooper gang is a team now, not two dudes led by a cocky thief, and honestly, it just feels better because of it. Of course, the Sly levels are the most fun, and he's going to get the most screen time, but it feels much more like a family and team as it allows you to control the ancestors and Carmelita. It also breeds more organic interactions between the characters. This game has a number of mini-games, none of which I hate more than those terrible, cringy rhythm dance scenes. I hate rhythm games in games that aren't themselves a rhythm game. If I had wanted to play Hatsune Miku Project Diva, I would. I play Sly Cooper to steal shit and watch a raccoon fight for his damn life in every single game. I know they were probably trying to emulate the love of the Ms. Ruby scene in 1, the dance scenes in 2, and the Bentley scene in 3, and if they stopped at the first dance scene with Murray, I could tolerate it. But they did it thrice. Every time, I wanted to pull my hair out and cringe into oblivion. Like, I am too embarrassed to play it with my elderly father in the room because of the sheer amount of questions that I would have to answer about what the fuck was going on. They brought back clue bottles after them being absent in 3, and while many loved that, I really didn't care for them. They made sense in 1 because they gave you all the moves in the Thievius Raccoonus, but they really never did enough in 2 or 4 to make me go out of my way to find them. They must have known that some people would have felt the same because while they are there in 4, they're not overly difficult to find them, and you can usually find them all in a regular playthrough if you put a little bit of effort into it. The gameplay is what brings people back because honestly, it's a very good and fun Sly Cooper game. I feel people forget this when online. But at the end of the day, the game is more than just the plot. I've played through it a number of times and honestly would play through it again if my PS3 didn't finally decide to die. This may be an unpopular opinion, but when people say that this is the worst game in the series, I thoroughly believe that they have forgotten that Sly 1 exists. Were I to rank my favorite games from worst to best, it'd probably be 1, 4, 3, 2. 4 definitely isn't the worst, but the plot and treatment of its characters put it lower on the list for sure. If I were to rate this game, I would probably put it at around what it is actually rated, so a 7 out of 10. This is only for the PS3 version. I've never owned a PS Vita, so I can't speak for that version, but I've heard that it is more buggy than the main version. They had a special dual play mode where you could use your PS Vita to help find clue bottles, and honestly, while it's not overly impressive, it's still way cooler than the failed 3D glasses from Sly 3. Or I assume they failed, because my eye issues, I literally can't see in 3D anyway, so there's that. But B-Mask said something about them not working for him in his retrospective. Check out his videos, they are masterpieces and deserve so much love. I mentioned that I would try to fix the game, so I guess I need to do it. Honestly, I am 20 pages in, and I want to stop typing, but because I love y'all and I have an ego problem, here you go. Also, before we get started, do not make fun of me, alright? I am not a storyboard artist. I will be including art or whatever to go with it, otherwise it'd just be like you staring at a blank screen. Do not come for me. I don't do this, alright? I just put too much effort in this to not go the entire way. Yes, it doesn't really keep to the style and it's more my style, but you know, that's what happens when you're trying to uber fast draw everything. This is also not supposed to be like, ha ha ha, I am the best writer in the world, I know everything. Like I write for a magazine that I publish and I write online in places and I'm writing my first book, but I'm not a professional screenwriter or anything, and this is just, you know, my best guesstimations of how I could follow the plotline while still changing it enough to make the game better and less flat and problematic and shit. So, you know, roast me in the comments if you will, but do be gentle. It fades into gameplay. We play as Sly as he and Carmelita attend the gala at the museum that we see in the original beginning cutscene. Sly is helping collect information from the attendees about the fake artifacts. He finds a note on a table that's written on one of his old calling cards from Bentley telling him to call him with a phone number, and he hides it in his suit pocket. He returns to Carmelita, who's talking to the Paradox, and the moment that he approaches, the Paradox abruptly leaves. Sly and Carmelita exchange confused looks, and he asks her out onto the balcony, where he gives her a rundown of the information that he's collected. She wants to go look in the storage areas, but complains that they don't have a warrant to search the place technically, and so they can't. Sly comments that if nobody catches them, it doesn't matter, and Carmelita shuts it down immediately. She comments that he has been saying shit like this a lot recently, and he should remember that he is an Interpol agent. He pauses and says that he knows that she knows that he is lying about his amnesia, and they should take advantage of his skills in order to help the investigation. She gets upset that given the location, she can't yell and talk to him about this, so she says that they should go home. It enters a animated cutscene where they return home and she gives him the cold shoulder and goes to bed, leaving him in the living room of their apartment. Sly narrates that he considered throwing out the number. He laments that he missed his old life and working for Interpol was slower than he could deal with. We see him take out his phone and go to put in Bentley's number, and the most recent call was to Paris Family and Couples Therapy. He sends a simple "What's up" text to Bentley. Flash forward in time and it comes to the main game's intro scene, with them breaking into the museum to take the katana to go back in time. During gameplay, the guys make fun of him for wanting to stop to mail something on the way to the job, and they ask if he needs to pick up groceries or the kids from soccer. Sly laughs it off, and they share quips and reminisce, just like they do in the main game. The Riichi level goes the same as in the game. The Tennessee level goes the same until the part where Carmelita comes in. Rather than being immediately angry at Sly, she looks upset and apologetic. She went to snoop around the museum without a warrant, like Sly suggested, and things go the same way as they do in the game for the Paradox sending her back in time. This time, however, she has been sent to the Wild West, and it's been a month rather than a few days. In her eyes, she disappeared without warning, doing the same thing she got mad at Sly for suggesting. She's extremely distraught until she stops and asks Sly why he and the gang were there. He explains everything and she immediately goes back to being mad at him. The rest of the level goes the same as in game. The wolf would still say the misogynistic stuff, but would demand that she goes out with him rather than making out with him, because this is a children's game and that was just completely creepy and out of line. The caveman episode happens like it does in the game, but Carmelita and Sly do not smooth it over, and they remain catty and frustrated with each other. The England episode goes the same right until the Penelope reveal. After the Penelope reveal, she and Sly are forced to cooperate. When she steps up to lead the team with a briefing, rather than interrupting and questioning her like he does in the game, he is quiet. At the end, he raises his questions and they move on. At some point between missions, Sly pulls Carmelita aside so they can finally talk. He apologizes for lying and says that while he would still be here doing this with or without her permission, he shouldn't have hid it from her. He apologizes for the years of lying and says that if they return home, he wants to see their counselor more often and fix what was wrong with him and their relationship. She says that he isn't the only problem and she knew the whole time and that she was no better. She apologizes for her hypocrisy and asks what they are going to do now. He replies that he doesn't know, but he doesn't want to turn out like Penelope and Bentley. She says that that would never happen and kisses his cheek before leaving to continue the episode as the game did. At the end of the episode, rather than Carmelita using the plot device coin she stole from the Paradox, Dimitri contacts them and says that something real talk, I have a stutter, and words like catastrophic, that something catastrophic was happening. There we go. The stupidity is really shining through. I think after like an hour of recording, my brain just turned to mush. Sly's portion of the book was disappearing, and the Paradox's father was on TV, so Dimitri redirects them to the heist that started the Paradox and Cooper feud. They use Sly's father's hat to go back to that time. In this version of events, the tables were turned and Connor ends up in jail instead. The team has to free him, but the bluster and excitement that Sly has had with the other ancestors is gone. He's afraid of seeing him and is antsy and quiet as they set up the plan to bust Connor out. When Sly finally comes to free him, he stands in the shadows of a corridor of the jail. Connor tells him to take a picture because it will last longer. Sly apologizes and steps forward, and they stare at each other for a moment, before Connor asks if he's finally gone mad. Sly tells him that it is complicated, and he will tell him everything as soon as they get him out. They break out using the laser slide technique that Sly asked for help with in the Connor vault, and Connor asks him where he learned to do that. Sly comments that his dad taught him. They get to the hideout, and an animated cutscene happens where Sly narrates that they told Connor everything. He said he didn't believe him at first and even got a little violent, but they calmed him down and brought him to their Sly. You know, that is the 7th time I've done this. I'm not even going to retake it. They brought him to their side. They brought him to their side slowly by telling him about Sly's childhood and everything he could remember about himself before Connor's death, and as much as they could about Connor and his gang, all while skirting around his demise. Connor doesn't know what to think, but with the information given, he can't completely deny Sly. He says that he needs to go home and that McSweeney is looking after Sly, and he has been gone too long, and the animated short turns into gameplay of the team briefing section. Bentley lays out the plan to retrieve Connor's cane from the little Paradox mansion on the other side of town. It was a threefold plan. The first job was to do reconnaissance. Sly was tasked to do that. Carmelita suggests that she comes with him, and he accepts. They take pictures of the guards, numerous doors, and a level boss, a younger mugshot. Carmelita asks if he's okay. Sly says he doesn't know. For his entire life he missed his father, but now that he can see him again, he feels like a disappointment. He knows that he doesn't believe a lot of what they were saying, and he worries that his father may actually dislike him. He says that the worst thing is knowing that if he says anything to stop his death, he may end up messing up time so badly that it would lead to a world where they didn't take down Clockwork. He would never have met Bentley and Murray, his father would have never been killed, the book never stolen, and thus he would never have to fight Clockwork in the first place. Everyone he loved and every good thing he did would have been undone, and the most he would ever be was a footnote in Cooper history. He was not particularly strong, nor fast, nor smart. He got where he was because of his friends, and because of that, he saw himself as a failure. Carmelita says that she can't imagine how he must feel, and holds his hand. She tells him he is not a failure, and there is no world or timeline where he would not be a credit to his family. She asks him again, what will he do? He says that he's going to help get his father's cane back and set things right, even if it hurts. She asks if there is no other way, and he says no. She says nothing else, knowing that there is really nothing she can say, and turns to head back. He stops her with a simple, "Hey, Carmelita?" She looks back. "You know I love you, right?" "I know," she replies, and leaves. The next job requires breaking into the Paradox's mansion. Sly and Connor steal disguises from the Help's quarters and infiltrate the mansion. Connor asks if this is a good idea, and he says that they'll see right through him. Sly says he knows what he's doing and to just follow his lead. They pickpocket some of the staff members and make their way to the Paradox's study, where the cane is framed on a wall. Connor says to get ready to run. The cane is trapped, so the moment they remove it, the alarm goes off. This is what they plan for. As they remove the cane, they trip the alarm, and the third part of the plan begins. They sprint out of the mansion, taking the most obvious and obnoxious route they can, in a chase similar to the scene where Carmelita chases him in the beginning of Sly 2. They collect dozens of guards chasing after them, and at some point, Le Paradox Sr. himself starts giving chase. The guards fall behind as the more athletic men run, and they exit the mansion. Carmelita goes to shoot him and knocks him out from the right of the door. Murray, who is on the left, grabs him and throws him into the van, and they speed out of the mansion. I'm sure I meant like the mansion's parking lot, but I don't think I really edited this shit. Which is a little ironic considering that I criticized this game for not editing its script. An animated cutscene happens showing them plopping Le Paradox in the cell that was originally meant for him. But this time Le Paradox Jr. was one step ahead. As they leave the prison, Le Paradox and a posse of police give chase, and it is becoming clear that the gang can't outrun them. Bentley panics, looking for anything to put into the time drive, and Carmelita gives him the stolen golden coin that brings them to Arabia. The Arabian episode goes almost exactly the same, only rather than Carmelita being told to do a belly dance, Murray does it instead, keeping with the theme of him cross-dressing / doing drag. The episode ends the same as the gang. The final episode transpires exactly the same as how it did in the game, the only difference being the addition of Connor, who helps the Coopers get their canes back. When it's his time to go, he turns to Bentley and says, "He hasn't told me everything, has he?" Bentley says no, and he looks upset, and almost like he can tell what is going to happen. He says it's time to go and that he has to hurry. Clockwork is honing in on him and Sly, and then he disappears. The rest of the episode goes down the same, only this time when Sly is about to go, it's Carmelita that echoes Sly's words to him. "You know I love you, right?" "I know," he replies. The last animated short is a little more grim. Bentley discovers that they all have some sort of cognitive issues from the time travel, and surmises that doing it as much as they did had some sort of effect on them all, from very minor memory issues to full-on migraines. He assumes that this is what sent Penelope into her delusions and begins to work on a cure and hunting her down through the postcards that she canonically keeps sending him. Carmelita keeps searching for Sly and receives the letter he sent at the beginning of the game. His voice narrates the letter, and we see her searching for him and coming across the photo as it reads, Carmelita, I'm sorry, I don't know where I stand without my family's legacy. I know the doctor said that I need to let it go, but in the middle of the night, on days where I can't sleep, and in between investigations, I get stir crazy. I'm not good at this sort of thing. I've spent my entire life running and hiding and fighting, so when it comes to peace, when it comes to safety and love and you, I don't know how to handle it. I am waiting for the next big disaster. I am waiting for clockwork around every corner, or for any one of the people that I and my father have crossed in our time to pop out and end it all. I want to leave that world behind. It's done nothing but hurt me and the people I love, but it's hard. After our fight, I considered going back to the counselor. I wanted to let it be. You're right, I'm not a thief anymore, and I shouldn't be bringing that into our work and home. But I have no choice anymore. Bentley contacted me. Pages in the Thieves Raccoonus are unwriting themselves, and my family is disappearing. Who knows how long before I am next. He has made a time machine, and don't stop reading, for once I am not lying, and we are going back to fix whatever is going on. Maybe I will be back in time to get this letter and burn it, but if you are reading this, the worst has come to pass, and whatever is going on took me out with it. I want you to know that I would burn the world to the ground for you. There is nothing I want more than to be a man that is worth you. I want a family with you and a future with you, but in order to have any of that, I need to deal with the past. I'm sorry, I love you more than life itself, and one way or another, I will see you again. Sly. This would then blend into the bonus scene where he lands in Egypt. And that's it. That's a very fanficky ramble as to how I would fix the game while sticking to Sanzaru's vision. To recap, Sly wouldn't just decide to fuck over Carmelita. There would be a build-up to that. There would be a tension and a follow-through with actual consequences that are not fixed in a single episode. There would be obviously some things that he can't fix, but there would be a attempt to move past and not just Carmelita being like, well, I was like really angry at him, but like now I'm okay because I guess he was sort of right. There would be as much problems on her end as on his as she's battling with, is he right or am I right, and where do my views on the law fall? It's not just going to be a single monologue where she says, well, I guess things aren't as black and white as I thought. Come on. Penelope would still do the things she did, but it would be brought up that it was because she's made ill from the time travel. So that would have permanent effects. She wouldn't just randomly do what she did with no reason. And it's really the only way that I could see her doing the things that she did without completely retconning her character. They would interact with Connor Cooper, which would bring out the insecurities in Sly, not just like, oh, my girlfriend and I are fighting and she's flirting with my grandpa's, which super weird. I know I said that before. It would actually touch on some feelings of inadequacy. All of this would be done without massacring Penelope's character and Carmelita's character, and just listen, what I'm getting at is Sanzaru, hire me. Alright, this was a rough draft written at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I already fixed your game, okay? I'm not saying that I have any experience in this field, but clearly, doing a little better than you guys. Do I have an ego problem? Maybe. Alright, I scripted the rest of this, but honestly, who cares? We are 25 pages in. It is an hour and a half of recording, and that's not even counting the editing that I have to do. So we are wrapping this up. You can expect more videos like this from me in the future. Not that I have any problems with being on screen, I'm just super self-conscious, and it takes, a combination of me wanting to do my makeup, having, a time or an era where my hormonal acne is not being a bitch. There's a whole lot of things that go into me recording with my face on the screen for videos, and it's not something that I can emotionally do with my mental health, so we're going to be doing stuff like this more often, long scripted kind of video essays, for me, Also because it's stuff that I like and I don't have to feel self-conscious. And if the Lore Olympus video showed me anything, it's that people actually like content like this. And I know I like content like this, so this is what I'm going to be doing. If you want to help out the channel, please check out Skillshare. Keep an eye out for my upcoming class publishing on a $0 budget. The link for the 1 month free Skillshare is on the screen in the description, and the QR code is on the screen. Check out ArtPal if you're in the art community. Honestly, it's really super awesome. I have like one of my drawings on there, but I'm gonna have more coming in the future. Honestly, their frames and their prints it's amazing. It's just really good, and it's direct help to artists who maybe don't have resources to go in and set up manufacturing and dropshipping and all that good jazz. So definitely check that out using the link. If you want to see what I'm doing, I have a art Etsy, I have a magazine, I have a website, though those are more for like occult shit. And I'm working on a novel that will be out